Coming up this week on the Digital Lifestyle Show, Gary's here, and we're going to be talking about new builds of Windows 11. I've got some music tech news, we've got some EV news, we've got some smart home news, and lots more. So let's get straight to Gary. Right, Gary, good evening.
Good evening.
And we're back again with another busy show. Plenty to talk about this week. We've got new builds this week. It's not all the Microsoft news around, but we did get some new builds. I've got something new I'll play at the end of the show as well. We've got a couple of posts I've done. I've got some build videos. I think you've got some EV news as well.
Yeah, a little bit. Well, power network news almost. But,
yes. Yeah. Which and and a few other bits and pieces to fit in as well. So I thought we'd start this week with the build news, and we're still on that situation with Windows 11 with builds where the Canary and the Dev builds are still on the same channel. So you've still now got chance to switch between channels as well if you want to. So if you're on Canary and you think, this is a bit risky, I want to go to Dev, you can switch between them now. So I think this time is fairly limited window, and if you want to do it, now is a good time to do it, because once they get a bit further off and they diverge again, then the only way to do it is to do a clean install. So you can do that now. Mine are on virtual machines at the moment, so it's not too bad for me. Although I have got the issue now of the virtual machines taking all the hard drive space up on my on my laptop studio. So I think I keep going. I every now and again I just start from scratch. Otherwise they get bigger and bigger. But I think my my Dev image is like 45 gig, my Canary's 45 gig, and my Beta's 45 gig. So that's most of the drive space on the Surface Laptop Studio.
Yeah.
So I did move one of the other builds off to an external storage, but it doesn't quite perform as well on external storage, and you've got to plug it in and everything else. So you can't beat testing on real hardware, but I don't want to put anything. I don't want to do it on my Surface Laptop Studio. That's my main device that runs everything. I've got my Surface Go. I use that for all my other stuff, and then so I have my old Surface Go on, but that's kind of dying, that one. So it's on the virtual one. So like 150 gig of virtual machines now. But every now and again, I just blitz them, start from scratch, and then they go back to a nice 10 gig size, and then they grow every time you put the builds on again. But it would be good if there was a cloud-based way of doing this, wouldn't it? If Azure, I should probably do it that way. Because I guess you could host those all on Azure, can't you? And
you could, yeah, that's good.
Yeah, but then you pay for the compute and the disk space, don't you? On that,
you would, yes, yeah, you would. So that could get quite pricey, I suspect.
Yeah. Which is maybe what I should look at, but you can't be having it local. But so these builds last week, it was there was some interesting new features on these builds, which I can share my screen. There we go. Sharing's back with Teams now as well. It went away for a while. So I said they're on the same builds now. So there was some accessibility features. So there's a new accessibility setting for low vision users. So you can see the mouse pointer better with like a red cross that highlights the diagonals across the verticals, aren't they? Left and right, and horizontal ones to see where the pointer is, which is quite a nice little tool. You also got the one where if you shake the mouse. I don't think I've got it switched on now. There's one in Power Toys, isn't there, where you shake the mouse and it zooms in and shows you where the mouse is. I find that really handy when you're on dual monitors, actually, when sometimes you can lose your pointer completely, can't you? And you do the shake and it brings you back. Normally have that switched on, but it's not on at the moment. But anyway, so that is an existing feature, or a new accessibility feature, that Win Control X you can turn on. They finally announced the changes to the widgets that have been asking for a long time now. I haven't actually been able to test this because they're doing the A/B testing, so I've not been able to test this. But here you'll see at the top left, there's a little My Widgets and a news the Microsoft Start button. It is actually the Microsoft Start icon. So currently, if you go to widgets, if I fire up my widgets, you'll see that I just see the widgets and my news feeds, and there's no way to hide one way or the other. Whereas this new thing, this new toggle, allows you just to show the widgets you add. So you could have the Spotify one, the dev. There's one for devs, isn't there? I can't remember what it was called. Dev Home. There's OneDrive. There's Weather. You can have all those, and you don't get all the news bits that go with it, so you can flick between them. So I think I'd probably have just the actual useful ones and get rid of the news ones. So that's something I hope they've done would do early days, and now they're finally bringing it to Dev and Canary. Although, like I said, it's A/B tested at the moment, so I didn't get the new features, but I'll be glad to switch that on. And there was an update. I didn't see this on the 16th second. They've stopped rolling out the above widget features. So, so I didn't get it, and they stopped rolling it out as well. So it looks like they had some bugs. So maybe we'll see it again in a future build. But I like that. Just the widgets, and they've also added some notifications on there as well. Notifications for widgets as well. So it will show you things that you've missed on your widget notifications, not your Windows notifications, which are over on the other side. Yeah. And other than that, there were some bits and pieces like weather changing, and there was some. Oh, I tell you what, I did find they did kind of bury this, but this is quite interesting one. When you right click on a file and you copy and paste, you now get text labels on there. So currently you don't. So if I right click on a file, I just get the icons, copy paste, and share and delete, but with no text. But on the new ones, you get the on the update, you get those icons on there. So they must have got some user feedback that people couldn't remember what they are. So the icons aren't particularly difficult to remember, but actually I think the text labels are quite handy on there, especially you get to the share and rename a bit. Perhaps stuff you don't use all the time. So, and you definitely don't want to do cut when you're meant to do copy and paste. So it's a good idea that they put those in, but it's interesting that they must have gone for that sort of low, the sleeker look without the text labels in there, and they found they've got to add those back in for the usability. So yeah, that's actually good. And the rest of the issues were just fixes. So that was Dev and Canary. We also got a Windows 10 one, but I tend not to look at the Windows 10 ones anymore. There's updates for desktop Spotlight and Windows Share. In fact, that's a Windows. I recognise that one. They've added in you can use Share, so you can share to WhatsApp and Gmail and things like that. So that was exactly what they added into the Dev channel about 3 or 4 weeks ago. So they're still adding things to Windows 10, even though how long has it got left? Another year?
Yeah.
It depends. We talked about that last year, didn't they? Will they extend that deadline next year? But that was it anyway on that. But on the beta channel, they added that feature which we talked about. I think it was the end of last year, where you can when you do take a photo or a screenshot on your phone, it shows up in with the phone link application as a little notification to show you've got that, and then it goes straight to your clipboard, which I found really handy. So you take a picture or you do a screenshot, and immediately in Windows, then you can then just copy that and paste it. Great for doing blog posts or instruction guides or anything like that. So I thought that was quite handy. So that's it now at hit beta channel. So that's not actually going to wait for 24H2. That's going to come fairly soon. I would have thought maybe a spring update or something like that. And there was loads of fixes in there as well. So a few interesting tweaks on Windows and new things to try, but I've given those a test, and I've got a video out on the Dev Canary build. I don't do the beta ones unless there's something specific, but I did do a video a while showing these new features in the beta channel. So they're all there. So that's the build news this week, but that's all we've got. So we're still waiting to see these whatever the next version of Windows are. But yeah, going back to that Windows 10, they've got what, a year left of Windows 10. Do you think that?
Yeah, I think it's supposed to be like that.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of machines that aren't capable of running Windows 11 because of Microsoft's hardware requirements. And I think they recently tightened them up again. There was a couple of workarounds that you could do to get Windows 11 onto a non-compatible machine. And I think in the 24H2 builds, these latest dev ones, that workaround doesn't work anymore. So you could, in the past, I mean, I've got it on my old Surface Go, the original Surface Go, but I think if I did a clean install with the latest ISO, it just wouldn't install. So they don't want you to install it on old hardware, but that does mean that 12 months time, or 18 months time, I think it is, we're going to be looking at lots of out of date hardware, and it's all it's all perfectly fine working hardware. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just that the OS isn't going to be technically supported. So I wonder what's going to happen. Are Microsoft going to relent, or would they? I don't know. I can't see them backing down on the hardware requirements now. It's a bit late in the day now, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So I think we'll have to see what Microsoft do with that. At least we know now there won't be a Windows 12 update this year. So it won't mean that there's 3 OSs in the mix. Then it'll just be the latest version of Windows 11, or for Windows 10, it'll be whatever that 2021H2 is, or whatever the last update is. So that's the Windows build news this week. I said there wasn't a lot from Microsoft this week. Let's go to different news thing. Let's go EV news, or EV-ish news.
EV-ish news. Well, EV charging kind of news. So Octopus, who are one of the most innovative of the electricity companies, I guess you could say, have introduced a new tariff, which is called, I don't remember what they've actually called it. It's called the Power Pack deal. And it's called the Power Pack deal because your car effectively acts as a power pack for the grid. So the idea is that if you've got one of the cars which allows vehicle to grid, and this is a very limited number, with a particular type of charger to charge it, you can charge your car up on cheap rate and then send some of that electricity back to the grid when the grid's on high demand, so like at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and you get paid for that. So you basically offset your charging costs against this thing. So you might charge 100% on your car and then put 10% back to the grid, and the difference between the costs, the pricing, would actually pay for the 90% you actually charged. So that they're reckoning people could basically save more than £800 a year on charging on an average usage. So it's quite interesting. The only thing is it's very restricted because vehicle to grid, although it's part of the CCS standard, hasn't really been implemented by many companies, or any companies for that matter. We see a lot of vehicle to load, but not so much vehicle to grid. It is coming, and there are no home chargers available which do vehicle to grid with CCS. The combined charge standard, which is the one which most cars now use. The older CHAdeMO standard, which Nissan obviously used to use and is still very prevalent in Japan, does allow for vehicle to grid. And all the cars which are supported are basically cars which have CHAdeMO. So that's Nissan Leaf, the Nissan EV van, or sort of people caravan, which I've got ENV something, I think it's called. ENV 200, and the Mitsubishi Outlander plug-in hybrid all have this ability to do vehicle to grid. I can't actually see how it would work very well with the Outlander because that's got a tiny battery, so you'd probably be putting all your charge back into the grid you've actually charged up. But
yeah,
but the others, it makes some sense, and yeah, it's an interesting approach, and I think it's something which we will see more of in the future. So CCS does support vehicle to grid, it's just not been implemented very well. So I think that will happen, and it's definitely an interesting concept because we do struggle in this country with sort of storage of energy. We produce a lot of it. It's particularly noticeable with wind farms. We throw away a lot of the energy we produce on wind farms because we just can't do anything with it. But we have peak times when we're actually short of energy. So it makes sense to store it and store somewhere, and then we repurpose it when you can. So yeah, definitely an interesting move.
Yeah, so I suppose it's a way of distributing the storage of electricity around the uh, around the country, I suppose. Rather than having big storage, you're distributing it into small little pockets everywhere, and it's encouraging people to do that. But then it's I guess it takes a bit of getting your head around doing that, because you charge your car up and then you're discharging your car, aren't you, again? And then I think, well, I've just charged it, and I want to. What happens if I want to go out? I'm discharging it back to the grid. I want to charge it again. But I wonder if that means, though, eventually that it would be. I wonder if that means eventually it would kind of be worth it for new builds to have like batteries, just electricity storage batteries
definitely
for peak use.
Yeah, with the tariffs we have currently, it actually makes a lot of sense to buy batteries even without solar. Because if batteries came down in price, which they should do with all the, well, the theory was that they'd all come down in price when all these second-hand EV batteries coming onto the market, which have been degraded to the point where they're going to be useful for EVs. Only thing is that's not actually happening. So that's kept the price of of batteries artificially high, I think, for home use. But yeah, if it does actually still make economical sense to do that over sort of like a 10-year period, because if you can charge a battery overnight on the low rate and then use it during the day, and if this sort of tariff probably should work with that sort of battery as well, you should be able to push it back into the grid. I don't think they've actually done anything like that yet, but yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, so even if you can't have solar, the batteries might be worth of just leveling your peaks of usage off.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting. This is a whole area, and it's away from just the EVs. This smart use of electricity in your home is just a whole topic, and it's all right. I guess there's probably people doing YouTube channels and podcasts and all about this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because I guess you can save some money if you're doing this. I suppose, especially if you combine it with solar. But even if you can't, then there are some advantages. It's almost going back to the old Economy 7 storage heater ideas, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's exactly that concept, but yeah, on a scale, obviously not just for heating. It's useful for everything.
Yeah, interesting.
And they are coming down in price. They just haven't come down in price enough yet. I mean, you're still talking quite a few £1,000s to actually have a storage battery of any reasonable size. But they will come down more.
Yeah, and I suppose this is links to things like that new API in Windows, which we talked about a few weeks ago, isn't it? Where it's aware of the energy consumption, or it's an API, isn't it, for energy consumption, energy source consumption, so that Windows itself can be aware of where the electricity comes from and how you use it and that kind of thing as well. So it can optimize its updates. Because somebody asked me the other day, they said they saw that thing saying that Windows is committed to energy optimization with Windows updates or something like that. It says in Windows settings now, doesn't it, when it's doing the updates? And it's, how can Windows updates be energy efficient? Which is true, but I guess if there's a way of it knowing, Windows itself knowing when to use when electricity is at a lower rate, that's when it installs the updates, and then when it's at the higher rate, it perhaps your laptop maybe could use reduced energy, use the internal battery and things like that. So it makes sense to build that energy API into Windows, especially when you get, it's not so much on client side, but I guess on server side, that's server energy is massive, isn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You would just, yeah, I mean, server farm, and it's the heat you loss on servers, which is the big thing. That's why there's this. I saw this last year. There's a company which is looking at basically crowdsourcing heat from servers and using that as an energy source. And basically giving you a discount on if you plug your server in and connect it to their system, you get money back on your bill space. But yeah, I mean, it's there's certainly some stuff to be thought about that. I mean, I know that some sort of cloud server farms are used, the excess heat from them are used to power local communities around them, to pay to some extent for the cost of running the server farms.
Yeah, it's quite interesting that how energy efficient, because as we get better technology, it's different to just not trying to save energy. It's how you use it.
Yeah.
All fits in with cars and everything else, and the smart home.
Mm-hmm.
Smart home. If you get your appliances that are aware of their energy, then you could change the way your smart home heats, or not just heats, but also, I guess, turn on things, your lights and
all that sort
like
of stuff.
rooms. Yeah, it's energy, and it knows the rates of energy. Talking smart home stuff, I've been my Eero stuff is still working really good. My smart Wi-Fi, I've had no issues with it so far. It's certainly been much more reliable than my old router, my old Wi-Fi that was, every now and again to crashed and things. Things just stay on the network now. But what I found was great is I turned on the notification when new devices come online. So it was the other day I was one sort of relative that was coming round, and they had already had I gave them the Wi-Fi key for the old Wi-Fi, which I used the same one. So before they even knocked on the front door, I saw the thing pop up to say new Wi-Fi has been detected. Could see the name of their phone. I knew exactly who it was that was coming in before they even got triggered the cameras off. So it's really good. I think the stats and things like that would be great but they're not worth me paying for. So what you get on a daily rate is, the daily information is enough to give enough for you to work with without me needing to get the extra data. But seeing the download rates and things like that, so like I could see like on Sunday, my sons have racked up, I think, 150 gig of download on his phone. One of them had done it on his phone. How is that even possible? It's not humanly possible. But yeah, he had managed to get that through. I think he was streaming Netflix, and you could see like on, it was his device and it was all on his phone. But I thought that's a hell of a lot of data to get on your phone. But this gives you all the stats, so it's really good for that side of it. And just checking things. But what I have found is that I just don't really have to use it and to diagnose it. I was always on the old router trying to sort out why something wasn't coming online or whatever. I don't really bother with this now. I just, I only ever get it to look at stats and things like that. I'm not always on it. But what I did found interesting, I think I've got one wired downstairs to the main Sky router, and I've got one up here, which is like the repeater one. But all the devices, I've got 30 devices on this one up here, and the living room one's got 11. And I'm surprised how many have took to this one. I wouldn't have thought that. If it was designing a Wi-Fi network and putting the extra devices in the right locations, I would have thought that most devices were that way and on that side of the house and downstairs. But actually, most of them are going on here. Even some that are downstairs, if they're perhaps in this side of the house, all attached to this one, even if so the upstairs downstairs bit, it doesn't seem to make that much difference. It's more where they are in the house, so between the front and the back of the house. So I was quite surprised, really. So, but I have found that 2 is absolutely adequate. We had this discussion, didn't we? Do I need 2? Do I need more than 2? But 2 is adequate. There isn't any device in the house now that doesn't get the range, including the switch bot and everything else that's out in the greenhouse. There's no problems with that. So 2 for this house has been fine. So I there's no need to fit an extra one, which I thought I might have to put 2 upstairs, 1 downstairs maybe, but that hasn't been the case. I have no problem at all. So it was well worth spending the money on those, even though I didn't go for the 6, I went for the 5 because I only have like 150 gig, which is fine for me. So yeah, it's working really well. I've got a couple of I've got my Surface now I'm on is plugged via LAN cable into the one up here, which is so it's actually quite useful to to give devices if you've got say a desktop PC without Wi-Fi, you can just stick it into one of those, and you don't have to worry about run cables or Ethernet or anything else. So yeah, it's worked well for me. I'm really pleased with that, and everything's working well. So far so good on that one. That's been a definite good buy, that one.
Yeah, and excellent stuff as well. And one of the things I quite like about the Heroes is it also acts as a thread border router, so you can use that to get thread devices on Matter, which is quite an interesting concept. But I haven't really played much with Matter. I haven't found many devices which actually support it, which is a shame really, because it'd be nice to do a bit more with that. But it's nice that you've got that ability with the Hero, as you have with the Alexa devices, or some of the Alexa devices, to make them thread border routers, because thread-based Matter devices rather than Wi-Fi Matter devices need to have a thread border router. Thread being the standard that was introduced for the old Nest thermostats. They used to talk to each other and then put forward. So yeah, but it's good. It's good you could do that with the Hero devices, the thread border router. Which would be quite a good way of working. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, definite good buy, that one. Right, what else I have for this week? Oh, talking about good buys. You know, I like my Modwave, my Korg synth. So I have got another tutorial video out. I really enjoy doing these actually. So this is how to recreate classic 1970s ARP synthesizers for the Modwave. Actually, particularly this video is a set of free sounds which you can download. So it's about 50 for the Modwave that are made available. So you can recreate the Pro Soloist if you want to do a bit Genesis. There's some strings ensembles and some lead sounds as well. So there's a video with those 50 on. Interesting. So yeah, I get a lot of engagement on these videos now, which is great. And I've actually some people now sending me questions. Can you recreate this synth for me? So which has been quite a challenge. So I've got one of these. So I'll probably have a video on that next week. Someone's asking me to recreate a Hammond organ with Leslie's on the Korg Modwave. So I'm going to be doing that challenge for a video for next week. So that should be quite interesting. So I'm having some quite good fun with that. I'm up to the stage now that I've got my music PC is actually what was my gaming laptop. So, but it's a Windows 10. It's an i7, I think, but it's 2019, 2018 spec, and it's starting to hit some performance limitations with some of these new soft synths, which are quite complex. So I was thinking, what do I do next? What's the next for a music PC? Do I build a PC? A dedicated PC? Do I get another gaming laptop? Do I just get do I use this Surface? But I like to keep it separately because it takes loads of disk space up for all the files, and I leave them set up at home all the time. So whereas the laptop comes with me. So I'm just deciding now whether to build something. But I looked at building sort of gaming PCs. They're awfully expensive.
They are now, yeah. There's people doing it, so the prices have gone up on the parts.
Yeah. I don't really need a gaming PC, so I don't need coloured fans, and I don't really need a particularly powerful graphic card. Just need a bit of processor grunt. It needs to have good throughput to write into the hard drive because a lot of it's direct writes. So M.2 with fast transfer speed would be what I need. So a laptop kind of does it quite well because you just get the laptop and it works. But if I had a desktop, I can then I can put 32 gig of RAM in it, and maybe if I want to expand that later, I can put some more RAM in it. I mean, it's going back to the old days of it when I was building media center PCs. It's not that dissimilar a media center PC spec from what you would for a sort of a music workstation PC. The graphic it's different to gaming. You don't need that graphics capability. But just to start, just when you go on and look at some of the gaming laptops, they're really expensive, and I don't know whether that's overkill. Well, I do know it's overkill, but it's expensive. but then building on my own, do I want to go down that route? I'm not quite sure yet, so I'll have to decide.
Yes, interesting one.
Yeah. Because it's quite nice with your laptop, you get the second screen and everything else, but of course I could buy a small. My ideal would be to have a small form factor desktop with, no, not really small, but the sort of the Dell sort of brick type ones, slightly bigger than they do some really thin, slim ones, and a slightly bigger one of those. I don't really want a big tower case in here with glowing lights and fans, because that's not what I'm using it for. So I'm just debating what to do, but it does seem a lot of money. You could buy a lot of synthesizers for the price of a gaming laptop, and so
Yeah.
there's the dilemma. And I think I'll keep this one for a bit young, but it's just when gaming, if you push them too far, you get your frame rate drops and whatever. With audio workstations, you tend to get audio glitching, which is awful. So you're playing and it'll just glitch. Cubase glitches like mad, and then I find if you close the project and go back into it, it carries on. It's okay. And there are some things you can do, like if you're using a virtual instrument controlled by MIDI, you can freeze it, so effectively it renders it. It's like a graphics rendering, where you render it and then that gets frozen and you carry on the rest of the track. But then if you want to make some changes, you've got to unfreeze it, and it's not quite as friendly. And you get a lot of soft synths in there, and it can start to get it's the audio dropouts. And you can go the other way of not using soft synths as well, but then a hardware synthesizer is as much as a laptop. So and I've got enough physical hardware in here as well. So yeah, it's a bit of a dilemma. This laptop, to be fair, is the one I bought for doing the VR, the Windows Mixed Reality. So it wasn't really designed for music stuff, but that's become what it is. So there isn't a music recording type PC that I've seen, and you can buy special. If you search for them, you can find specialists that will build them for you, but they're really essentially just building high performance sort of gaming type things. I suppose it's like workstations, isn't it? Like the traditional workstation, a Dell workstation, they're quite expensive as opposed to a Dell PC. So dilemma. It would be quite nice to set up a Surface just for dedicated music, to see what we can do with that. But then that's a premium product as well to use as a dedicated music thing for a few hours a week. It's a lot. So I'm not quite sure what to do with that. But anyway, I'm going to have a think about it. But I also want to get into it. I've got other things. I want to get a MIDI 2.0 controller, because we're going to be talking MIDI 2.0 on the show in a few weeks. And I really want to get into MIDI 2.0. But I found there's a Korg controller that's quite nice, but the cheapest one is £500. And that's just a controller. So if you buy it, doesn't make any sound. So it's not like buying a new synth at £500 when you think, "Oh, this is exciting to make new sound." It's just purely a keyboard controller. But if you want to get into the MIDI 2.0, then you've got to get the hardware to go with it. So it's all these things are on my shopping list. But I think I'm trying not to spend anything. I've spent enough recently. So, but I'll keep them on my list for now.
Things which might be on my shopping list, but probably aren't at the moment. I don't know if you noticed that Amazon have launched pre-orders for the Echo Hub.
Right.
And the Echo Hub is their smart home control panel. It looks like an Echo Show. I mean, under the skin, it must be an Echo Show.
Right.
But it's predominantly for smart home control.
That's a good idea.
And it's 8-inch. It's designed to be able to use power over Ethernet, which obviously makes it's sort of what a lot of people would plumb things in with. So you could mount it as a wall panel. It's very much like a smaller version of the Echo Show 15, the big wall-mounted one. It just looks that sort of styling. And yeah, it's smart home first kind of in terms of the user interface.
I found a screenshot of one. Yeah. So it's $79.
Yeah, £169.99 is the pre-order price for the UK. Usually, UK tax being applied there. Yeah, but it's interesting. Would you buy that, or would you stick to an Echo Show? Or I don't know what the interface is really going to be like for smart home control, because the one on the Echoes isn't particularly brilliant. added the new interface with the widgets, and this looks very similar to that interface. But
Yeah, I can see the sort of looking at the screenshot. You can see I've got my Echo Show over there, and you can see the resemblance to some of the screens on it.
yeah. So it's interesting. It's definitely interesting, and I know a lot of people have asked for that sort of thing. Don't want us to show. I actually want something which is more controlling my smart home, and I guess also if it's stuck on that screen and doesn't change off that screen, it might be more useful for that sort of control.
Yeah. Because I
Yeah.
often thought that the some of the stuff that comes up on rotation on the Echo Show, I'm not really always that interested in. It's showing me new apps and things like that. If it showed me this is your home's temperature, on a rotation, and then because I've got that link thermometer up here, and I've got my Hive, and if it showed that and the greenhouse, a little panel showing those 3 temperatures would be quite interesting to walk past and see that. And this essentially looks though a bit like a sort of an Amazon tablet, doesn't it, with the dedicated UI to it. I suppose they could release that as an app, couldn't they? And just
I could, yeah.
You could just stick on if it was an Android, you could even use a nice cheap Android tablet then and just make your own one of those. I mean, it's something wasn't Microsoft going to do something like it a while? Do you remember when that was coming to? There was rumors that Microsoft were going to do something like that, weren't there, with a sort of smart home hub?
Yeah.
A few years ago, and nothing came of that. But yeah, I like that. I think that's a good. I could imagine having one in my office, say here now, to, like I said, to see the temperature zones and things like that, and cameras and everything else. I mean, I don't particularly have a huge amount, but I've got lights and things like that, so you can do it all from your phone. But having a dedicated panel, I can see that. It's not overly expensive, is it?
No, I think it's probably. I mean, I suspect we're going to see pricing on Echo devices go up a little bit because they actually want to start making some money on them. Whereas they've been very much loss leaders up to now. So, and for what it is, I mean, you couldn't buy a tablet of that quality for that sort of price. So, yeah.
I suppose the other use of it as well is like you can do all the the apps on your phone and everything else, but especially if you've got to install those apps for the people in the house. So yeah, it's fine. I've got everything on here, and on my wife's phone, I've got the Hive installed, and some of the other apps on there. But especially maybe if you've got someone who doesn't want to use it, maybe as an older person doesn't want to use a phone to do it, or you have somebody that comes in your house, your shared space or something like that, and you don't want to share accounts and things like that. It makes sense to have a sort of dedicated device to do it. It goes back to this was kind of the thing when we sort of 10, 20 years ago looking at smart home. There was central controls, wasn't there? That's where you had your PC perhaps running. Do you remember M Home? That was obviously to use Media Center as your smart home hub. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense to have something like that. I think the good thing about the Echo devices, you're pretty much sure they're going to work with all your devices because you're already if you're like me, you've got your Echoes all set up to control everything anyway. It makes. I'd like to see them do it as an app as well, but rolling your own device with Android is fine for us, but maybe for this target market as well, they also might be just want a box you order, it arrives, you sign in. Did they do the pre-signing in now? I think when you order them.
Yeah, you can do that. You can set it up to be honest.
So it just arrives and you put it on and you plug it in and it's on your Wi-Fi.
Good.
I mean, I think it's a good idea.
I think, and also this could be your smart home hub because it does have everything in it in terms of smart home connectivity. So obviously it's got Wi-Fi, it's got Bluetooth Low Energy mesh, it's got Zigbee, it's got Thread, and it's got Matter, which means you basically cover all the bases on the smart home. I've an Apple HomeKit.
I like it.
Yeah.
I can see one on the wall here behind me. I'm interested to see how you get on with it now because I like it.
Yeah, whether I get one or not, I might try see if I can just try one, get one on review. But yeah, it's. I mean, it's something I look at and I think, well, actually, I don't really need it because I've got the I have an Echo Studio 15 in the studio here, and that does all of this. I actually have what you're asking for because I've got all my temperatures showing in one of the widgets on it.
Right. Yeah.
So do I actually need one of these? It's an interesting concept. I mean, I can certainly see some benefit. I could see someone setting up a new smart home would put one of these in every room, and that would be the ultimate answer for it. I mean, it compared to an Echo Show, it hasn't got some of the things. It hasn't got the decent speakers. It has got two stereo speakers, but it's not going to have the sort of quality of speakers that some of the other devices have got. I'm always really impressed by the Echo Show 15 speakers, to be honest. They outperform what I expected them to do for something which is basically flat. But yeah, I mean, it's certainly interesting. I like the fact they've actually thought about how you can mount it so it's sort of built into the wall. That definitely has some, well, not built in, but on the wall, but no cable showing. That has some thought taken into it. And I love the fact it's power over Ethernet as well, because very few Echo devices are. So that's kind of good. But and hopefully the microphone array on it will be quite good.
Yeah, communication. It's like that. Kind of what we thought the smart home would be.
Yeah,
30, 40 years ago, isn't it? A wall panel or a video type screen thing.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, I like that idea. I think, yeah, I definitely like those. I don't know that enough to get one because I need to save it for processors for a laptop or whatever, new music machine. But yeah, I do like that.
Yeah, and they do the 30-day return stuff on Echo devices at the moment, so you could actually try it for 30 days, and if it didn't work, return it.
Yeah, well, that could be interesting, that one. Right, what else we have for this week? Oh, one other final thing is I have got a couple of new tracks out on Spotify.
And excellent they are.
so I'm going to play out with the Detective Returns, which is on Spotify. So this is a single, effectively.
Like that one.
Yeah, Detective Returns and No Way Home. So the first one is inspired by Jan Hammer. So from the sort of 80s Miami Vice. So it's very much like a chase scene that's what I had it in my mind when I was doing it. It's a chase scene with the Ferrari in Miami Vice. And the second one is a more like a synth pop, mid 80s synth pop, maybe Depeche Mode, Pet Shop Boys type thing as well. So so that's out now on Spotify, Apple Music, and Amazon Music as well. And I've also got another 10 or so tracks that I've finished as well. So I'm just deciding what to do with them. Interesting thing to how to release them nowadays, because I've got some which are like very much synthwave, 80s synth pop type stuff, strictly synthwave ones. I've got a couple which are still 80s but less synthwavy, and I've got some which are longer, not really prog, but verging on that sort of later Genesis type songs, which are the sort of 5-6 minute songs, and they're made up of 2 or 3 parts. And it got me thinking, how do you package these things together? It's pretty easy to say, I've made a synthwave album here, here's 10 synthwave tracks. But when you've got, say, 10 tracks that are all slightly different genres, do you package? In the past, you would have always thought they would go as an album, but do you now I'm thinking maybe I release 4 together and of one genre and 4 of other genre, or do people still listen to albums in a mixture? I like having a different styles of songs.
I like an album. I do like an album still. But that's probably historic and what I grew up with, and whether other people still do that, I'm not sure. Interesting question to our listenership.
Do you want 5 songs released together of a similar genre and then 5 of similar, or do you want what I would think for like you is maybe an up-tempo one as track 2, then there's a ballad on track up-tempo track 1, a ballad on track 2, track 3 is a longer one, track 4 is maybe a more up-tempo, you mix and match it like that. I prefer the mix and match, but how do you get people to listen to stuff? It's quite interesting. It's easier if you label things with a genre, then it's easier to get people to listen. But yeah, that's a question for listeners. And so you can send your questions in to ian@live.com and or answers into that question. And also I'll take the music tech ones as well there. And if you go onto our YouTube channel, you can leave some comments on there as well on that. And Gary, where can we find you, and what have you got on the EV Owners channel?
On the EV channels, we're hopefully getting a new EV driver show coming up fairly shortly. That should be out a couple of weeks' time. I've got a very mini review of the ID Buzz coming out fairly shortly as well. So that'd be interesting. And that is a really quick review because I only had it for about 20 minutes or so, so I haven't got a chance to actually do much of it.
Well, they caught you.
Yeah. But it was still long enough to know how horrible the software was, but that has been changed. I mean, there are updates coming out from that, and I think Volkswagen have finally got their act together on software from looking at the new version. So that's good to see. I think it is a struggle for the big car manufacturers. It's really interesting that whole thing. Maybe we can talk a bit more about that on a future show. But the software quality from most of the major manufacturers is very poor. But yeah, so find me there, or you can find me at Garry WMA on all those social media platforms.
Excellent stuff. Well, we'll be back same time, same place next week. I'm going to play out with the Detector Returns, so check out those links, check out the videos, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah. Cheers, then.